So welcome. We're here today with Wendy Woods. Welcome, Wendy.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Good day and evening to everyone, all the listeners. Wendy is a professional certified coach. She's trained with CTI, the Coactive Training Institute, and has an incredible mix of direct experience in corporate executive management, combined with expertise in adult education, applied mindfulness meditation, and emotional intelligence. She's the founder and principal of Watershed Training Solutions, a dynamic company empowering teams and leaders to create greater success, well-being, and engagement at work. She's sought out by top organizations like Ernst & Young, J&J, and TD Bank. Wendy also just launched her new division, Wendy Woods Coaching, to focus on one-on-one and group coaching for leaders. We're in for a treat today. Wendy is a contributor to the Huffington Post and USA Today and has been featured on CTV News, CBC Radio, and Canadian Business Online. Again, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So for everyone today, Wendy, can you tell us a little bit about where you're based?
I'm based in Toronto, Canada. So it's, a really amazingly diverse and exciting city. And I'm thrilled to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Wendy, these are times like no other. We're seeing so many more people turn to mindfulness, whether it's through apps like Headspace or Calm, through online searches, or just increased exposure. With your background in mindfulness, we know that these aren't new practices. They were established millennia ago. What's driving this trend?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's been pretty popular since I got involved around 2005. Like the interest in it has grown. And I think that there are a number of contributing factors to this. First of all, life has become so busy, right? Our personal lives, our professional lives, we have so much going on. And so mindfulness is a great way to sort of reset, refocus our brains, our bodies. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
There's been a lot more science about this and looking into what mindfulness can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen that it actually can reduce stress, anxiety, can improve creativity, decision-making. And so there are so many benefits to mindfulness that aren't just, oh, nice to have. It's no longer that really flaky thing that hippies used to do. It has science back behind it. And then, of course, now we're all dealing with COVID. And, COVID has removed so many of the normal ways of coping with stress for us, like going to the gym or getting together with friends. And so mindfulness is something that can be done, as you mentioned, on an app, or it can be done easily through a Zoom session. So it seems a lot more people have found it as an easy thing to do as they manage COVID. So those are some of the reasons.
Yeah, those are really important points. And from my own experience, I'm a daily meditator. I've had a practice for the last few years. Was a little slow, in my opinion, to arrive at that practice, given that I was interested in yoga and in neuroscience. But it does take habit to create that willingness to spend time every day. And I loved what you were sharing with the audience about its effectiveness as proved in the scientific literature. So what effect does it actually have on our brains, on our physiology? And that it's a great practice for people to explore during COVID when other ways of dealing with stress are not as accessible.
Yeah, and you just said accessible, and that's the key word, right? We care, one of the ways of meditating, as you know, is focusing on your breath. We always have our breath with us. So whether you are at home or you're out grocery shopping, wearing those masks as we have to do right now in Toronto, you know, you can manage, be more present, be more mindful through your breath. So you can do it sitting, but you can also do it as you go throughout your day.
Yes. What benefits do mindfulness offerings have in the corporate space? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so there are many benefits to what mindfulness can do in the corporate space. And I should mention that it's almost becoming kind of mainstream in corporations. You know, you've got companies like Apple, SAP, Google, Aetna that are bringing it in, as well as smaller companies. So it's becoming quite mainstream. And they've actually done studies within organizations, so offering mindfulness sessions and then evaluating, you know, the benefits that people received. So things like greater job satisfaction, commitment to the company, collaboration, greater productivity, and then getting reduced emotional exhaustion or burnout, sick days, and stress.
Yeah,
really helpful.
yes.
So,
Amazing results for the modern workforce from an ancient practice that's accessible to everyone.
yeah, and I think it's also, you know, what they've done in these companies is they brought in courses and they made it sort of acceptable and accessible for people. Mm-hmm. And as a reminder, like you touched on something at the beginning, you said, you know, I came late to the party and then it's been a little late developing it. And so having sessions like this in a company, you're reminded, right? You have an opportunity to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's building a habit, right? A habit that we can, that just becomes natural after a while, like going to the gym, which I know I need to figure out to get to. Speaking of gym.
Right. I'm curious, could you tell us how you introduce mindfulness to your clients?
Well, yeah, so often it's just they'll arrive at a session, a coaching session, mm-hmm. and you know, I love my clients are amazing. They're incredible individuals that are managing so many things and driving things within their organizations. And, you know, often they're just going from one meeting into the coaching or going from the coaching into another meeting.
Right.
So I'll often introduce it at the beginning when I see that they haven't really landed in the room, like their bodies have arrived, maybe in the Zoom room, but their minds are still going about what they just left.
Yeah.
And I'll offer, you know, should we take a couple of minutes just to focus on some mindfulness? And often they really appreciate that. And then what happens is they'll come to the next session and I'll say, oh, let's do that mindfulness thing again.
Ah.
Yeah, so even just doing it for a few minutes can make a difference. So I wonder if you would like to try some with me, and then people on the podcast could also just experience a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Mindfulness. So I'm going to assume that most people are going to be in a chair, but if you're on the floor, cross-legged or whatever's comfortable, that's okay for you too. If you wear glasses like I do, you may want to take them off. Tells the brain that something else is coming, not to be so intellectual. And it's a really good thing to take the glasses off, and just keeping your feet flat on the ground. If you want to be more alert, even just during the short meditation, you can move yourself to the front of the chair. If you're leaning up against the back of the chair, make sure that your back is fairly straight, a comfortable straight. Your neck is straight and aligned with your spine, but a lot of people tend to move their necks up, so just bringing your neck even down 1/4 of an inch. And you can actually just do a backward shoulder roll, just gently. We hold so much tension in our shoulders. Yeah. Actually do one or two in the front too, just gently. And then just actually to start, just letting out a sigh. Yeah. And sighing is actually the body's natural way of releasing stress. So it's something we can do throughout our days when we're feeling stressed. Oh yeah, I can let out a sigh and that'll help. So then just bringing our attention, you can close your eyes or you can keep them slightly open with a really soft gaze, whatever works best for you. And we want to bring your attention to the breath. And there are different places where you can bring your attention to the breath. It can be at the belly, the nose, the chest. I tend to prefer the belly just because then I can focus on doing a deep breath where my stomach's going out on the in-breath and exhaling and noticing my stomach going in. So we're just going to do that. Just focusing on our breath. Big belly in for the in-breath and belly going in on the out. And even during this brief mindfulness practice, sometimes our mind wanders. What do I have to do for dinner? Oh, I forgot to send that email. And what we want to do is just notice that there's a thought, let it go without judgment, without being upset with ourselves. And bringing our attention back to the breath. And even doing this in the short mindfulness practice, it may come up again and again and we get distracted, and that's okay. We do it without judgment. And when we notice it, it's actually strengthening a part of our brain that's responsible for our attention. So every time you notice that you get distracted and you bring it back, you come back to focusing on your attention. So we're going to just go into about a moment of silence, a minute of silence, and then I'll come back and let you know to open your eyes. And in the meantime, just focusing on your breath. Still focusing on the breath. Wiggle your fingers, your toes. When you're ready, just bringing your attention back to the present moment and opening your eyes. I see a nice big smile on your face, Lily.
Absolutely. That was lovely, Wendy. I really appreciated your style and guiding through and how beginner friendly it was, and also how you included some tidbits about what mindfulness meditation allows you to do. So focusing on the part of your brain that strengthens your ability to concentrate, awareness of the breath. So often when we're rushing throughout our days, we're holding our bellies tight and we're constricting our breath, and that sends us into a state of stress. But even if it's just 2 minutes, you can experience relief and come out feeling refreshed. I feel refreshed and clear, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, it doesn't have to be, I need to find 15, 20 minutes to meditate.
Right.
Even taking a couple of minutes and realizing that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? When we lose our attention to something else, we notice it bringing back, we are strengthening our attention and our concentration. And that's actually one of the reasons that so many companies have brought it in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for
Something else that I notice after sitting in mindfulness meditation for even sometimes I'll just sit for 2 or 3 minutes, is that when I come out of it, at times I find that I'm at my most creative, that I have these ideas that come into my head. So I'm curious, from the benefits that you've mentioned thus far, what else do corporate clients, executives, what do they experience? What's their response?
Well, the creativity is really important. When our brains are jammed, packed full of activities and to do and what's next, it doesn't leave us room for the creativity. So creativity is one. Really decision making, really being clear on what's important, zeroing down to things. And also sort of that attention piece is obviously so important for so many of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can easily get distracted by devices or our own thoughts. And so being able to constantly bring ourselves back into the moment, or recognizing where maybe that's really challenging and I need to do something about it. Whether it is, I'm going to take a few minutes of mindfulness, or taking a mindful walk around the block, or just going and getting that cup of tea and being really present with the process of making tea.
Right, right.
Yeah. So those are just some of the things that they find helpful. I think often they just appreciate the permission to take a few minutes
Mm-hmm.
from work.
Yeah.
Like, this is okay to do this.
Mm-hmm. I think from your comments, a couple of the themes that I picked out was this um, improved ability to discern what's important and enhanced focus and concentration. And I'd love to explore with you a little bit about how that helps in team environments or one-on-one interactions. How does this connect with emotional intelligence?
Wow. So emotional intelligence is very much about being aware of our emotions, the people around us, and then knowing what to do about them.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about mindfulness, so one of the basics in emotional intelligence is having self-awareness, being able to observe ourselves. And that's the foundation of building upon emotional intelligence. If you can't look at yourself, then it's going to be hard to improve any of the other areas of emotional intelligence. And so what mindfulness does is it helps us cultivate that self-awareness, right? Being able to recognize our emotions in the moment, recognizing when we're kind of might be off our game, and being able to then figure out how to manage it, what to do about it. So mindfulness is a really nice gateway into emotional intelligence.
Yes. And this is an essential skill for leaders. How have you seen this transform clients with whom you've worked?
So, you talked about teams and leaders, and we all have that sort of automatic response, right? We get triggered by things or we react.
Mm-hmm.
So having that a mindfulness practice and being able to observe ourselves can allow us to slow things down and
Mm-hmm.
be able to either recognize that you're triggered and what to do instead, or maybe even say, now is not the time for me to do anything. I need to address this when I'm in a different state. So very much being much more aware of those emotions, right? And emotional reactions. So that is, that's one of the things I've seen. And actually, a number of years ago, I went into a company and we did emotional intelligence assessments and we did coaching. And one of the men, so it was with a leadership team, and one of the leaders started to recognize that when he would get frustrated, his face would go bright red. And it would signal to the people on his team, they would get scared and intimidated. And when he started to recognize that even just this reaction that he could better manage, he was able to have better conversations with his team, have a stronger relationship just by even noticing that. So, which had ripple effects.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Just building in that sense of self-awareness of yourself, and then how you affect others, and then how that ultimately affects the team and broader work culture, that ripple effect,
Exactly.
because it is a real thing.
It's very much a ripple effect. And you started out talking about COVID, and COVID is a very unique environment, and people are, not everybody, but I think in general, a lot of people are more stressed or don't have the same capacity that they might have had pre-COVID. And it depends what is going on, where we're at with the numbers and everything, but it's definitely had it, people's fuses can be a little shorter.
That's absolutely true. I mean, with what we're all experiencing at home, with children being out of school or caring for elderly parents who are at increased risk, just going out shopping has become, for groceries, has become much more difficult and a stressful experience. And being aware of how that affects our emotional well-being, our mental states, how we show up with others. I think that we could all use a bit more mindfulness these days.
Yeah, and it's just the way we come back to our breath again and again in the session, or whatever your attention is focused on. We might need to come back to mindfulness several times throughout the day in order to show up the way we want as leaders.
Yeah. So, Wendy, you also work with startups, and as a startup founder, maybe this is a selfish question, but I know a lot of people in our audience are also entrepreneurial, whether or not they're intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs, and they could value some additional information around this. What differences do you see in the startup culture, and how can mindfulness and emotional intelligence help founders and startup teams?
Yeah. Well, as you know, when we were talking a little bit about that before the podcast started, being in a startup, it's fast paced. It's, you got to keep going. You've got to meet certain targets and deadlines. We had funding, like it's business on steroids, if you will. And so, having those times even to reflect or have a bit of a reset is really important. Also, being aware of those emotions. So having that emotional intelligence is important, because when we're under so much pressure, we can often, a lot of those reactions or triggers can show up. And so it is important to be able to effectively manage those as a leader, as a founder, because your mood impacts a team. I was talking to a founder a number of years ago, not a number of years ago, sorry, recently, but she was talking about something from when she founded her company. And she said her and her co-founder were having a fight and they were in a glass room. So she turned to him and she said, okay, we're fighting, but let's pretend we're getting along because everyone is watching us.
Oh, yes.
So they were actually arguing, but made it look like they were getting along. So yeah, it does have a place to reconnect and reset and make sure that we're showing up the way we want to.
Yeah, that's a great example. And how do you bring that into your coaching practice, working with clients? What are the elements of your style that touches upon mindfulness and emotional intelligence, these key leadership skills?
So, bringing mindfulness into the actual coaching sessions helps.
Mm-hmm.
And helping people really zeroing in and focusing on, being able to push away some of the other pieces so that they can be more mindful of what they really need to focus on. And often I find personally, and I don't know what your experience is, when I sit and practice mindfulness, there's clarity that comes from that, right? What do I really need to be focused on? So helping my clients have that clarity is really important. And also, and I probably go through the side door as opposed to the front door, how emotions may be derailing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or affecting their relationships with their colleagues or their direct reports.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware of that. So I kind of bring it in different ways. If there is clarity that is something that the client needs to work on, that's when I bring in the emotional intelligence assessment. That's when we really coach to those particular areas that they need help on, like that company where I was working with the entire leadership team, and the results were amazing in terms of collaboration, actual savings, decrease in stress. It was, yeah. To see, yeah.
I really appreciate how you described that. So from one aspect, having an exploration with your client, and then on a secondary note, but just as important, when you understand that there are some areas where they can continue to develop those emotional intelligence skills, bringing in an assessment and having something that actually allows them to measure their progress and achieve these outcomes. So I think that's incredibly motivating and also helps people understand what the value and benefit is involved in working with a coach, that there's a container to explore and a container to grow incrementally in your skills.
Absolutely. And the assessment that I use for leaders will compare individuals to top leaders and where they fall on emotional intelligence.
Oh, that's fun.
It's great because they get immediate feedback. Where are you compared to these top leaders?
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even realize that was out there. That's really neat. And it also brings in this competitive edge that makes people want to continue to improve, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's it's very, very powerful. I mean, as you know, with the coaching, it's just incredible.
So what other tools would you say are in your coaching toolkit? Where else have you found best results with your clients?
So I'm just laughing because I think, how long do we have? So you know what, there are so, and as I I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm,
Mm-hmm.
currently taking a course with the head of coaching at Google.
Oh.
And yeah, and so I thought I had a lot of tools, and now I'm expanding that toolkit even more. For me, it really, it's understanding where the client shows up and what's going on for them
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what we need to deal with. I try and sort of always start with a hypothesis of, you know, do they need insight? Do they need some capabilities? Where are they?
Mm-hmm.
And then bring in tools based on sort of their need, or what would best serve them. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that one of the things is, if that's not landing for a client, I've got another 3 tools that I could use. So I'm
Yeah.
being a little I'm sorry, I want to answer the question, but there are just so many
Yeah,
that I use.
I'm hearing that you have a whole slew of tools in your toolkit, but you spend a lot of time customizing the right mix and solutions for each individual client, which really speaks to your skill and expertise as a coach. Your clients are very lucky.
Oh, thank you. Well, and it's, an ongoing learning, right?
Hmm.
Learning new ways, faster ways to get clients the results that they want.
Great.
Yeah.
So maybe in closing, how can organizations translate some of these practices into the new normal, this remote working environment that we're experiencing under COVID, and we think will have long-term repercussions for the workplace? What are you seeing, and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, we talked a lot about mindfulness, and you appreciate the benefit as well as I do. I think one of the things that's a very easy thing for organizations to do is they can bring someone from outside, like myself, or just even do it internally, is um, bring people together virtually to do mindfulness, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So you can do an actual seated, but if someone says, oh, that doesn't work for me, maybe they take that time and just do a walking meditation, even if it's just walking in their office. So
Hmm.
that's a really easy thing. And you make it available to people. So if they want to be on camera, great. If they don't, make that available to them too, so they don't feel the pressure.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that can be done. The other thing is, I call it kind of taking your emotional temperature. What am I, throughout the day, what am I feeling? What might be the reason for this? And where do I want to go with it now? So you could have walked out of a meeting feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? Oh, I realized that I didn't get back to someone, or the deadline got pushed up on something. Okay, what do I need to do it now, so that you can kind of do a bit of a reset?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of having those emotional temperature checks, those check-ins with yourself, just saying, oh, where am I at? And sometimes it's just sort of being in your body. Are your shoulders hiked up? Are you
Right?
holding your breath? Are you pacing? Are you feeling jittery? Or sometimes it's just checking in and saying, hey, I'm feeling pretty grumpy right now. What's going on? Uh,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you just hit on something. That emotional check-in could be, how am I feeling? It could
Mhm.
be feeling physically as well. And it could be, where are my thoughts? Oh, I'm not going to get this done. Or, I failed, or I didn't do this properly, right? So checking in and going a little deeper. And then,
Yeah.
okay, great. So where am I now? How do I shift out of this?
Yeah. That's a great arc of exploring the check-in. Emotions, body, thoughts, and bringing it back around and having the focus, the presence to then decide.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I love about this is it can be really quick. Like it could take you 2 minutes to do that, not even.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these are really important check-ins. as we, well, you know, in Toronto, where you are, we're heading into the fall,
Mhm.
right? And we're noticing some cases going back up, and people are starting to feel a little more like stressed.
Mhm.
So those check-ins are going to be really important in the workplace and at home.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today, Wendy.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Always a pleasure connecting with you, Lily, and sharing anything that can help anyone in their roles.
Absolutely. I think that there were many, many nuggets of wisdom and practical application that the listeners can walk away with today. So again, thanks and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.